Hi, and once again, thanks for tuning in. Well, today's lesson is very important. I'm very excited to share this with you. And if you have any questions regarding all of these videos, you can give me your comments or you can drop your questions there. In fact, if you go to my channel. Well, just don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you would stay updated for them. In order to understand conditional structures, which is somehow complicated, and I know that lots of my students have problem with it, or they take issues understanding what it is because it's kind of hard. It's not really hard. Let me make your mind at ease. It's very simple to understand. If you just learn this way, I classify it, I made it very easy for you. These are my classic examples, all right? Conditional sentences or conditional structures, or generally call them conditionals. Well, roughly speaking, we have three categories or three conditionals or conditional sentences. The first one, the first conditional, is about present time, present time. So whatever that may happen or may not happen, right, well, could be real because we are talking about the present moment, okay? The present moment. So it can have something in a store for us if it happens, and if it doesn't, then it would end up having another result. So generally speaking, we would have, well, two clauses. One of them includes if, all right? I started all of my conditionals with if, but you can juxtapose the two clauses, okay? So any conditionals has two parts. This is the first part, which we call clause, the first clause, or the if clause. And this is the next clause, which we will call the result, all right? This is, well, the cause or if clause. Sometimes we call it if clause, right? Because it includes, this is the clause that includes if. And this is what we call result. For all of them, it's the same thing, basically, okay? So the if clause or the cause, well, holds if or begins with if. So the first one talks about present time and it's about real time. Like this is my example. If you study hard, I can, as an English teacher, tell my students, if you study hard, you will pass the course, you will pass the exam. You will not fail it, okay, or flunk it. So what does it include? Let's break it down now. Let's analyze these clauses or this sentence altogether, the first conditional. Well, the if clause starts with if and a clause. You study hard. Well, I used a simple present tense. Simple present tense. Simple present tense. I just started using the initials, and if you have any problems with the tenses, you have to refer to my other videos, which is about tenses. I explained in detail all of the 12 tenses we have available in the English language, all right? Well, so if you study, which is study, our verb, which is simple present tense. And then there is a comma. Don't forget this comma, right? Just like this if, all right? Well, if starts our clause and comma separates the two clauses, the if clause from the result clause, okay? Then the result clause, it starts again just like a normal sentence, but it's not a sentence because, well, it's kind of, well, an independent structure or sentence, but this one is not independent because once you start saying or using if, you expect as an interlocutor, as somebody who listens to somebody or somebody else or one of your friends using this if clause, you expect him actually to continue that. So that's why we say that is a dependent clause, okay? Anyway, so a dependent clause plus an independent clause. Anyway, you will pass the course. You will pass the exam. Will pass. What is it? Simple future tense. Very easy. So in the first clause, we use simple present tense. In the result, we use simple future tense. You can give me many more examples with anything that you have. You can also personalize your conditionals, like related to your personal story, and make many more sentences just like this, all right? Let's now move on to the second conditional, which is about present time, just like the first conditional, but it's unreal, not real. It's unreal because right now there isn't any chance of it happening. All right? For example, I'm not really rich. All right? I don't have a lot of money, but I think if I had a lot of money, if I had a lot of money, if I were rich, if I had simple past tense, not present, past, simple past, if I had a lot of money, then there is a comma, as you can see, and then the result. I would travel around the world. I would travel. Future tense. It's a future tense, would travel, but not will, mind you. So note please, future tense in the past, not simple future tense, right? If you refer to my video, in which I talked about all of the English tenses, I explained there's 4 subcategories under future tenses, right? But there you could add or change will into would, and what you end up with is future tense in the past, okay? So instead of will that we use in the first conditional, we use would here in the second conditional. That's why we are saying, or we are referring to an unreal or imaginary situation. Imaginary situation, but right now, referring to the present moment. All right? If I had a lot of money right now, if I were rich, if I had a lot of money in my pocket, I would go somewhere. For example, I would go shopping. But right now, I don't have a lot of money, so I wouldn't go shopping, right? So I would travel around the world, okay? Just like the example above, you can juxtapose the 2 clauses. So you could say, I would travel around the world if I had a lot of money. There, in that situation, where you don't use if at the beginning, you have to use if in the middle. Then there is no need for a comma. Just like this one. So you could juxtapose, like you will pass the course if you study hard. Okay? Now, let's shift to the last item, which is past unreal. It is not only referring to the past time, but also unreal. Why unreal? Because it could never happen unless you have a time machine and you can go back in time and change your scenarios. So right now, we don't have that, all right? And so you cannot change anything in the past. This is not an option for us, okay? So we are talking about an unreal imaginary situation. Not only imaginary situation, but not right now, but also referring to the past time, right? Now, let's see what we are dealing with here. So, again, I started with if. If he had been polite, it means that he hadn't been polite. He had been rude, the opposite. So, if he had been, what is the tense of had been? Past perfect tense. Past perfect tense. Had plus PP. Had plus PP, right? So, if he had been polite, there's a comma, don't forget this, no problem would have happened. No fight, no quarrel would have happened. Now, here we have would have happened. Future perfect tense in the past. Not will have happened. Would have happened, not will. All right? So it's future perfect tense in the past. Okay? So because we are talking about past tense or past events, and they are unreal to us because it's imaginary. You're just giving a hypothetical situation or scenario, all right? So these are all the conditionals we have in English, all right? So if anybody tells you that this is really complicated and too hard to learn, tell him otherwise. This is very easy to understand. So once you understand what you're dealing with, present time, and past time, whether you're dealing with real situation or unreal situation, unreal or imaginary situations, right? Well, just a little note here before we finish. Well, for the present real, sometimes they omit the will part, and you will have both simple present tense in both clauses. There, some grammarians call it, in fact, zero conditional, not the first conditional. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.